Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, adapted by Lisa Malaki, illustrated by Howard McWilliam. Part 5. Chapter 9. A strange turn of events. The day after the robbery, Oliver awoke in a ditch. His arm was blooded, and of no use to him. He struggled to his feet, and made his way to the nearest house. It was the same house that Fagin's gang had tried to rob. Oliver quietly knocked on the door. Two servants, Giles and Brittles, opened the door. They gasped at the poor boy in front of them, covered in blood.
"It's him, Brittles!"
declares Giles.
"One of the robbers!"
Brittles grabbed the boy and threw him on the floor.
"This is the one you shot, Giles!" "Don't let him die,"
said Giles,
"for I want him to hang for his crime."
"Giles!"
whispered a voice from the top of the steps.
"You're frightening my aunt as much as the thieves."
A young woman rushed down the stairs.
"Why? It's only a boy. Is he badly hurt?"
She examined the boy.
"Just a boy, I say, one who hasn't been given a chance in life."
She stood and spoke sternly to the servants.
"Take him upstairs to Giles' room, let him rest, then run off and call on the doctor."
She looked at Oliver once again.
"We must treat him kindly, Giles. Treat him kindly for me."
Miss Rose was 17. She was mild and gentle, pure and beautiful. She had noble deep blue eyes and a good humor, and nature to match. Her aunt, Mrs. Maylie, came into the room to look over Oliver. Brittles returned with Dr. Losberne an hour later.
"This boy is ill,"
said the doctor. He turns to Giles.
"This was your doing?"
"It was my honor," Giles replied. "Your honor? But was it fair?" asked the doctor. "A knock on the head, perhaps." Giles felt ashamed. Dr. Losberne called the women in to see Oliver. "He is quiet and resting comfortably now. I think you both need to see how young he is." Rose walked in and sat in a chair next to his bed. She pushed his hair aside and wept. The old woman gasped.
"This poor child could not have been a pupil of the robbers. He is too young."
The doctor spoke. "The youngest and fairest are too often his chosen victims. He knew no other way." Rose continues to weep.
"He may never have known a mother's love or the comfort of a home."
She turns to her aunt.
"Please think of that, aunt, before you allow them to haul him off to prison. If I didn't have you, I could be where he is now."
The woman put Rose close to her.
"I won't let harm come to him. My days are drawing to an end. May mercy be shown to me as I show it to others."
Oliver didn't wake up until much later that night. When he did, he told the sorry details of his life. His tale was filled with such suffering, misery, and cruelty that Rose and the aunt wept.
"We must do something for him,"
said Rose. "Perhaps we can convince the servants," said Dr. Losberne, "that Oliver was not one of the robbers' gang." Aunt Maylie called for Giles and Brittles.
"Can you swear that this is the same boy you saw last night in the darkness of the house?"
Brittles and Giles could not be certain. The police did not need to come and see Oliver. He would remain a free boy. Oliver grew stronger with each passing week. He felt the kindness that Mrs. Maylie, Rose, and the good doctor had to give. He wanted to repay their kindness.
You have repaid us 1,000 times simply by being here, Oliver,
Rose said. Nicer words had the small boy ever heard. He truly felt as if he was a part of their family. When spring came, they took a trip. Dr. Losberne accompanied them. One morning, he took Oliver out for a ride in the carriage. Suddenly, Oliver turned pale and pointed.
"That house!"
Oliver exclaimed.
"That is where Figgins' gang took me in. That means that Mr. Brownlow doesn't live too far from here."
Let's go see them,
said Dr. Losberne.
They will be overjoyed to see you.
When Oliver saw the large white house, he jumped out of the carriage and ran to the door. A servant answered. Oliver beamed.
"Mr. Brownlow, please. Tell him Oliver is here. Back at last."
I'm sorry,
said the servant.
He's gone off with Mrs. Badwin and Mr. Grimwick to the West Indies. They left just 6 weeks ago.
Naturally, Oliver was disappointed, but he knew there was nothing he could do. He was thankful for his new family. It was the happiest 3 months young Oliver had ever known. Chapter 10. Rose becomes ill. The happy days quickly came to an end. Rose became ill, so ill that her aunt thought she was going to die.
"Don't say that,"
said Oliver.
"She makes everyone so happy. Ever will never let her die so young."
She has a fever. I've heard of this fever. It will get worse,
said Mrs. Maylie.
Go at once and fetch Dr. Losberne. He'll know what to do.
She gave him a letter.
You must travel 4 miles to deliver it to the station. Once there, they will take it from there on horseback to Chertsey.
At the last moment, she gave him another letter. It was addressed to a Henry Maylie, Esquire. Oliver was off at once. He ran across fields and down little lanes. Finally, he came to the station. He paused and looked about the inn next door. He hurried up the path and knocked into a man coming out of the inn.
Curses to you,
raged the man.
What are you doing here? You haunt me and will continue to do so. Death upon your heart!
Oliver was shaken by the man's appearance. He had purple lips, and sores covered his hands. He tried to grab Oliver, but Oliver was too fast, for the man had been drinking. As Oliver ran, he turned to see the man fall to the ground with a foaming mouth. Oliver quickly forgot about the strange man. He ventured forward, delivered the letter, and rushed home to be by Rose's side. She had grown worse. A local doctor was standing over her.
It would be a miracle if she makes it,
he said. Oliver didn't sleep a wink that night. He prayed to God to save the woman's life who had saved his own. Dr. Losberne arrived late the next evening.
So loved, so young, but I am afraid there is very little hope,
he declared. That day, Oliver crept away to a churchyard and spent the day in prayer. When he returned, Mrs. Maylie was sitting alone in the parlor crying. Oliver's heart sank. She hadn't left Rose's side at all. What did this mean? Dr. Losberne walked into the room. He took his hat off.
Tell me,
cried Mrs. Maylie.
Is she dead?
No, cries the good doctor. She is not dead, nor will she die. She will live to see many more days. They all fell upon their knees and gave thanks through their tears of joy. The next day, Oliver went out to the field to gather flowers for Rose's room. When he returned, he saw a young man getting out of a carriage. Mrs. Maylie was looking at him through the open door.
Mother, I just heard the news. Rose will live. Why didn't you call for me sooner? If she had, I can't even bring myself to say the word.
He kissed his mother on the cheek.
I would never have known happiness again if anything had happened.
There is a stain on her name. If you marry her, that stain becomes yours. It's of no fault of hers. But if you had children, they would feel the shame.
Mother, there is no shame. I love her. I would protect her always and never leave her.
You think so now, Harry, but the world is cruel.
Mrs. Maylie said.
It would be crueler to never love her. I have suffered greatly without her. My heart is set on Rose. If you oppose me, you strip away all of my happiness.
It is because I love both of you so much that I want to spare your future broken hearts. But come.
She grabbed his hands and kissed them.
We can talk of this later.
Will you tell her I'm here? Asked Harry. Harry had to wait until the fever was gone before he could see Rose. When she saw him, her eyes filled with tears.
You shouldn't have come. Your future is bright and must not include me.
My future is you,
exclaimed Harry.
Without you, I am nothing.
He took her chin in his hand.
Do you love me as I love you?
Rose blushed.
Yes, but there are too many people who will mock you. My background is not worthy. You must go.
If you want me to go, you first must promise me one thing. In a year's time, I will come back to you, and you must once again talk of our love.
Rose agreed as Harry fled the room. He was too pained to turn to get one last look of the woman he loved. Outside, resting from his sleepless night filled with prayers for Rose, Oliver saw Fagin's face flash before him. He shuddered. Was it a dream? He then heard a rustle in the bushes. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Fagin and the man with the purple lips. Oliver screamed for help. Harry rushed outside to him. He helped Giles and Britos look about the property, but didn't see any signs of the men.
You've had many troubles, Oliver,
said Harry.
Perhaps you are dreaming about them now.
But Oliver knew the truth. It was Fagin and his helper coming to take him away from his new family. Thank you for watching. This is the end of part 5, to be continued in part 6. If you like this story, please like, share, and subscribe. See you again.